it's your first home or your last one, figuring out all the different ways to prepare for paying for that home can be a challenge. Unless you have someone like Brian McRae in your life. Brian is a mortgage loan officer with Central Bank of St. Louis, Missouri, and is an expert in helping you navigate the financial aspect of making a big home purchase. So Brian, thanks for joining us today. You're the guy. and I don't think people realize when they're first starting out, like let's say you've never bought a house in your life, and that could be because you're 25 or it could be because you're 50 and you've been renting in San Francisco or wherever your whole life. Where do you even begin? And when do you call a Brian McRae to come in and help you figure that out? So what advice do you give people?
Well, candidly, I think before somebody starts looking, because usually when a home buyer, they get excited, they start finding when they start looking. And one of the biggest mistakes that I think people see is they're financing reactively versus proactively.
So they start looking for a house because they think, oh, I want to buy a house.
Exactly.
And they forget about, oh, I got to have some money to pay for it. Or
unless you've got a big bank account or a very gracious family member. The money side of things is probably, in today's world, probably more important than ever.
So start there.
Yes, absolutely, because the financing process is going to be really, and by the way, markets change, but our principles don't. So markets will change, but principles don't. So in other words, getting proactively ready, because when you find the house, depending on the market, you want to make sure that you've got your financing in line.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the market, you're talking about the real estate market.
The real estate market.
Right, so in right now it might be a seller's market and buyers feel like they don't have a chance and this and that, but that could change in a few months and it could be a buyer's market, but no matter what, you still have to do the same preparation, right?
Yeah, every client deserves a good mortgage, and in today's world, a mortgage is really more than just a mortgage. Now, at the time we're talking, interest rates are near historical lows, but even so, a mortgage is going to be one of the biggest liabilities that somebody takes on the balance sheet, and how you structure that. And we tell clients all the time, be careful about what kind of loan. Just find a lender that you trust so they can walk you through what the options are, because the best rate or the lowest fees on the wrong mortgage can literally cost a client thousands of dollars over time.
Yeah.
So
okay, let's start from the beginning. So I want to buy a house. I've never bought a house before. How much money do I need to have in my bank? And I know that's a relative number, but what do I need to have? Do I have to have some money to put as a down payment, and what's that typical amount?
So again, markets will change, but the principles won't. Currently, there are some incredibly low down payment programs available. Those evolve and come in and out of the market, but there's FHA. You can do as little as 3.5% down. There's some other programs that are a little bit more unique that you can get 100% financing. And this is a little bit different than the last time 100% financing was available, because there's been some compliance. Our federal government has come in and said you have to check certain things to make sure somebody has the ability to repay the mortgage. So
FHA loan, so who would qualify for that?
By the way, that's a big question. So I'm going to give just a general overview. Okay. There's really 4 criteria that every lender are going to take a look at. 3 of them which are completely under the control of the home buyer. Their income, their assets, their credit, specifically their credit scores, and typically a lender is going to take a look at the middle credit score of 3 bureaus. And then the 4th criteria, which really is a to be determined, is the home that the client is looking to purchase.
And if they don't know that yet, that's not important.
That's nothing yet.
So we want to know, you want to know your income. So you got to have a job, and probably for at least a couple of years at that point, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the second thing you said was your assets. So what do you already own?
Well, assets meaning how much liquid, assets in terms of reserves, down payment, are all things that are being looked at, so that we can then position those with the best home financing strategy for the client for the duration of time that they think they're going to be in the house. Okay,
and then the last thing was credit. So paying attention to your credit. So if you think you might want to buy a home, whether your first home or your third home, in 2 to 3 years, these are things you can start working on at that point, right?
Well, when you say at that point, my recommendation again is to be proactive versus reactive. Because when you start looking, because credit, for instance, 70% of credit reports contain errors that are negatively impacting someone's score. Yeah. And you may not know, we see it all the time. There's a medical collection that shows up that someone doesn't know about that's adversely affecting their score. So that's why finding a lender that you trust and having them review and see if there's any adverse impacts. Because again, markets change, but principles don't. You want to be you want to present a financing package to a home seller that is as attractive as possible.
So you'll talk to somebody at any point, and you prefer to talk to them well in advance of them going out to buy a home, to start looking at homes.
Well, from a functionary standpoint, that makes sense, because there's two roles a good lender will play. They'll play the functionary aspect. Functionary is just making sure we do what we're supposed to do, which is to get them the loan that they deserve. But so doing that proactively, so that we can again take a look at income, assets, credit. If somebody's thinking about changing a job, we may tell them, hey, then you may want to either accelerate your home buying process or delay it until you will qualify with a new job.
Right.
So just getting a professional's view ahead of time just on that situation is well worth it. So we always recommend proactive.
Okay. So, we have time for your top tip. What's your top tip for home buyers today?
Top tip for
you get
home buyers.
One.
That's going to be tough. Top tip for home buyers, the hidden thing, start early. It's just literally, start early.
That's perfect. You heard it. That's great. I love that. We heard some great tips from Brian, and my advice is to heed his. Brian knows where it's at when it comes to financing your home. He's been there 1,000 times over. Thanks for joining us on Real Life, and keep coming back for more great real estate talk.